Welcome back, everyone. It's DestinysJesus here. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to qualify for the Solo Cash Cup finals. I'm 23 years old, I'm a coach, and this is the first time I played a solo tournament in 8 months, and I've qualified on my first try. And I definitely believe every single one of you guys who play the game more than me can go ahead and qualify with ease. I'm going to be showing you guys the best tips and tricks, the best game plan, and the best meta advice you can have for qualifying as easily as possible, and of course some useful things for once you get to the finals, how you guys can get your first earnings as well. For your game plan for Solo Cash Cup opens, this is what I'd recommend. Treat your first game like it's a game in the finals. You need to be playing for the win in your first game. So get game winning loot, try to WK a little bit, and then once you've got good game winning loot, don't go too heavy on the kills. Play for the top 2 in the end, which is exactly what I did here. I played for a top 2. Only got second place, which is completely fine for an open. It's not like I missed out on $100 or anything like that. And then I tried to do the same strategy game 2. And at this point, I realized that I was a little bit high reload and I couldn't W key as much. I don't have as much time as I used to play the game. It's my first solo tournament in 8 whole months. So I was going ahead and just playing for endgame without any hammers or without really the best loot, which is what I did in these 2 games. And I still got a very good amount of points. And I'll show you guys how you can play without hammers a little bit later on. In the 6th game, I was able to get a hammer early game, so I had a fairly free win. I'll show you guys what I did in that game, as well as a whole lot of things for hammer rotates. And in this last game, I did a very similar strategy. And for these last 2 games here, I was already qualified, so I wasn't really trying too hard. Data spawn once is completely fine. Now let's get into some off-spawn strategies for you guys that I'd recommend doing. Now for a solo drop spot, what I'd recommend you guys choose is to have a backup. It's really good to have a backup, something that you can do maybe in the first game, something you can do a little bit later on if you're dying or spawn too much. But then is B, to make sure that your main spot, the spot that you're going to be landing in the majority of your games, is based on your strengths. Don't just go ahead and choose a spot because your duo sent you a drop map or that's where you land in duos. Choose something based on your strengths and weaknesses as a player. So for me, I would say I need to make sure that I've got an advantage on my opponent's off spawn to actually go ahead and kill them. I also don't be fighting people off spawn if they are about as stacked as me. I like to have an advantage versus people, which is why this spot is perfect for me. I can outloot my opponent, as you can see here. I can sort of outposition them and do things based on what they're doing. And also, it's a little bit more of a shambles fight a lot of the time, which I think I'm pretty good at. It sort of relies on aim and not necessarily mechanics or anything like that. If you are, however, a more mechanical player, more of a flashy player, you're a lot more confident, 100% go for one of these bigger POIs like Frenzy or Faulty. I think those spots are really good. If you're a player that's not too confident in your fighting abilities, I'd recommend going for a 50-50 spot or something like that, where you can just master the drop, and that's basically all you need. So for tip number 3, one of the biggest tips I'd give for you guys is not trying to throw away your games trying to get a hammer. If you land at a hammer drop spot, that's fine. However, you're not always going to go ahead and get a hammer from that spot. And a lot of people, if you try to take mid-game fights to them, especially as you get a little bit higher in the elo of these solo cash cups, it's going to be very hard. Instead, do what I do here. I'm trying to take fights around 50-50 to see if I can get a hammer from different people. As you can see here, I kill someone but don't get a hammer. And then I'm completely happy a lot of the time just playing endgame without a hammer. It does mean that you have to go endgame with a good amount of mats and a good amount of heals, and you also kind of need some mobility like slap juices or playing impulse and soaring sprints. However, you definitely can play without it. Unless you guys are really confident in your solo W king ability, I personally am not at the moment, especially because I haven't been playing too much. It's my first solo tournament in 8 months, as I said at the start of the video. I'd much rather go ahead and just play a mid game out and then go ahead and make sure I'm endgame with good loot and then try to take fights there. As you can see here, I make it into the whole way first move, so I get good points in this game, and then I get my hammer refresh. I get pretty stacked from this, just from one player running into my box, and I'm able to just play this game out and get a top 3 with this hammer. So now that you've got your hammer, one thing you need to be really aware of is how to actually use it properly. You always want to build it before you hammer, if at all possible, and then when you land, try to get a little bit of distance. So you can see in these clips, I'm hammering from backside, and then I sprint the whole way to front side. And you do take damage doing this. If you've got good heals from a good mid game, it's really solid. And oftentimes, when you reposition after you land with your hammer, you can choose a really good spot, like front side down here on low ground, on a spot that I can refarm. It's pretty much the best spot in zone to be. And then also in this last clip, I'm able to cut hammer from backside as zone shows up for next. So that forecast in this game. So I'm able to drop down onto low ground on the dead side, which leads us into our next point, which is how to get refreshes. Okay, so my next point for you guys is going to be how to actually get successful refresh. Right here, this is an example of a refresh that a lot of people get. So I fight this guy on backside of the zone, I get the kill. However, you can see I don't get any of the loot. I don't have time to sit and storm getting all loot unless I waste all my splashes. So that's an example of a bad refresh. I'm backside looking for a kill on backside. This, however, is a perfect refresh. You're fighting somebody who you're ahead of, so you're front side cutting them off. I piece him up a little bit, he's getting stuck in the cone. And I've got time to get all of the mats, all of the heals, and even swap out my shotgun, and then instantly I can hammer forward and get front side. You need to be really careful when I'm going for refreshes on backside. I highly recommend avoiding it unless you're absolutely shambles. It's a really bad habit to have. Instead, you're in a position like I'm here. Again, I get another refresh in a second. I'm towards front side, I've got a very easy rotated zone, and I spot two players fighting. Really simple kill, just spray through as they're fighting, and I get both of them, and this is how I go on to win this game. Just quickly, if you guys are enjoying this in-depth solo breakdown, I've got 10 times as much content on my solos masterclass for the solo meta this season. There's a brand new update, the second update this season with Guild 10, as well as a whole lot of new videos with people who've got their first earnings this season from the solos masterclass. And that's pretty much the only reason I was able to qualify. It's just from watching and making a load of solo videos without playing any solo customs or solo arena. If you guys put the work in and implement the things, you're going to get 10 times as much improvement as I have from those videos. I guarantee it. The update is completely free, and if you guys don't have the course or you're interested in it, it is $5 off with code YouTube, and it's going to give you lifetime access as well as all updates in the future completely for free with that one-time purchase. I hate when people do these rolling things where they're trying to charge you $10, $12, $15 a month. It's a one-time purchase of $20 and you get lifetime access. I've updated it for 2 years straight since I started it. Another quick tip I can give you guys is always try to do these timing shots when people hammer. If you see some hammering on backside, try to timing shot as they leave their box. But also be aware, you don't need to go for every single kill. It's much better to be thinking at this point in the game how to go for win conditions, such as playing low or playing high for triple plat next. So when you play for low ground, you shouldn't actually be trying to fight the other people on low ground. You should be trying to do this to get it into a top 2 situation so you can possibly go for height. So you can see here, I get a refresh just from somebody dying on my wall. And this allows you to go for height in multiple cases. So whenever you get a refresh endgame, especially final zone, always go up for height. And when it comes to actually trying to hold height, a lot of people mess this up. And I messed this up in the first clip right there, so you can see. I'm trying to look for a shot on the guy. Don't do that. Instead, make sure you're connected in multiple different ways. So you have to have decent mats to do this. And hold your floors as people hammer up. Whenever someone hammers up, if you just hold your floors, it basically prevents them from coming up. And it completely blocks them out. And it sort of prevents them from going up at all. I'm going to do it here in a second in this final 1v1, and I'll let you guys enjoy this. This is pretty much the game that qualified me. Just win here at high-low. Just make sure you hold your floors and you only go for height final moving. Hold my floors, and now into the 1v1. Max!